What's up, and welcome back to Nowstalgia Pod, giving you another packed episode of everything that's going on in pop culture. My name is Pat Sheehan, joined by my trusty co-host, who I'm going to walk into a field and blow up, Dave Martin Swagger. Dave, what's going on, man?
Not much, man. We're here another day.
We are here another day, but no longer is Daft Punk here another day. And for those who haven't seen Daft Punk's epilogue video, go check it out because that's what I'm referring to. I'm not going to actually blow Dave up, but today Daft Punk announced that they're ending. They're no longer a duo or a musical act, and they did it in very Daft Punk fashion, where their robot forms in a 8-minute video walked into a deserted field, I guess just a desert, and one of them blew up. Uh, Dave, pretty shocking. We haven't really heard much from Daft Punk other than some collaborations, some production side of things in quite a while. Haven't released an album since 2013. Was it 2013? Maybe even earlier. Was it 20?
2013. Yep.
Yeah. So, what was your reaction just hearing that this legendary duo is calling it quits?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, surprising news, not something anyone expects. And I think that's because Daft Punk can just vanish without a trace, like they often do and have done. And no one pays it any mind. We assume they'll be back when they're back, right?
Mhm.
They're in their late 40s at this point. They literally vanished as soon as they swept the Grammys in 2014 for their last album, Random Access Memories. So the fact that they're actually confirming that they're broken up, especially like in a produced fashion,
Mhm.
I think lends yourself to two thoughts. They're either really just done and over with and gonna retire, I guess, or go solo, whatever it is. Or they're just setting themselves up for some like comeback tour in the years to come. But they're also not the biggest touring act, so um, I think because of the production side of it and their like general like anonymity and how they conduct themselves and their celebrity, I don't know if we'll learn if it's like some Oasis shit and they just hate each other now. I don't know if that's like the case or if we'll ever find out if that is even possible, potential. But yeah, it's weird. It's weird news, right? But they confirmed it in the only way they could, I guess.
Yeah, it was incredibly Daft Punk fashion, like I mentioned, and I think your two thoughts are in the right direction. My first thought was they must have had some difference in terms of how they either wanted to go about making music or what they wanted to be doing. They've worked with a lot of really high profile acts. I think most recently people probably remember the work that they did with The Weeknd on Starboy and a couple other tracks off. What's that Weekend album?
Yeah, it's Starboy. I feel it
Yeah,
coming's
Starboy.
the big
Yeah,
collab
the
there.
big one. And then, obviously Kanye back in the late 2000s, and a couple other people here and there. Um, but I think what's I'm most looking forward to with all this is, like you said, if we ever get that like documentary or that biography, um, kind of telling the story of what happened here. They're so secretive, and they've intentionally been that way. Spoken publicly about how part of what they enjoy about art is the keeping an illusion around it and not wanting people to really know too many things. And just like you said, it just feels like it very easily could have just gone on and they didn't have to do this. So it either feels very planned, like like a publicity stunt, or really like they're just like, we just need to end this for one reason or another. So a lot of mystery still around it, and probably not going to get many satisfying answers. But uh, RIP to maybe one of the most legendary acts that was still around. I mean, you think about obviously like the great rock acts and now some of the legacy hip hop acts, but in EDM, I mean, is there really anyone else that rivals to them in terms of stature?
I don't know. Tiesto maybe like
Yeah, some of those big
I think
guys.
Daft Punk is kind of like weird because they crossed over, right? They're very firmly within that deep house scene, but also completely separated from that, and were
Mhm.
part of mainstream music culture when they chose to be. Um, and also, like the way they conducted themselves, not doing a lot of press, not just being mysterious. The helmets, like it all lent itself to like a cool like cult of personality as far as like DJs are concerned. Um, and obviously, Dead Mouse kind of followed suit with that
Mhm.
idea as well. Um, I mean, I don't know, like, I'm trying to think, like, music-wise, like, do you think Random Access Memories, stuck around? I feel like it was hugely celebrated 2013, 2014, but, like, I don't remember it being, like, as high as people might have expected on the decade end music list. You know, like I feel like it kind of faded a little bit. If it, to me, I mean, I like it and love the album at the time, though. To me, that's actually I think most memorable to me for reintroducing Pharrell Williams as a solo act. Obviously, with Get
Hmm.
Lucky, winning Record of the Year, and then leading directly into Pharrell's that solo album he put out in 2014. That's kind of I think what I remember most of all about that time.
Yeah. No, that I think that that's a really good point. Um, yeah, no, I don't think it really had the staying power that it had. Although I still think when like Get Lucky comes on, people will can probably really count back to the time and how much that just really like captured the radio play. I was given a look over today and playing a couple of the deeper cuts off it, and I I think that it's actually still a really great album if you go back and listen to it. It was definitely one that I found myself listening to a lot at that time. They had a lot of really good star turns on that. Julian Casablancas, I think,
Yeah,
has a really good showing on that
song's
album.
quite popular still. Check those streams.
So it's still good, but it's weird. Like when I think about Daft Punk, I really ever really think about their albums as a whole, and then maybe that's
Definitely.
more of like the time we came from, and if we were more like 90s into early 2000s music people, like that was our heyday, maybe we would be like, no, like,
Yeah.
the
When
first
you had to
albums that
buy
are
the album to listen to it. Yeah.
right.
Obviously.
But I think the hits really stand out, and that's why if anyone wants to go back and like really get into like the early Daft Punk stuff at this time, I really do recommend going to their Grammy winning 2007 Alive album, which is just like it's a live album where they as their second and last tour, and it won for best electronic album. And you really get a sense of not only the major hits from before, One More Time, Bigger, Faster, Stronger, but you
Mhm.
also kind of get a sense of like what Daft Punk could do live and why like their Coachella sets and their shows in Paris with the pyramid are so legendary because no one created a sound like that. No one was able to mix live like they did. If you read about how they made the sets, like very revolutionary for the time, where they had all these different laptops and pads that were
Right. Yeah.
linked up
Sure.
to. It was just
CDJs, all that stuff.
incredible. So it's definitely just a great listen through. We gave it a spin today. Um, yeah, I don't know. Do you have a favorite Daft Punk song?
Yeah, I was thinking about that. I'm in the similar boat where I really know of the singles and because I became aware of them first via the singles. And
Right.
I mean, yeah, uh, three of their four albums came out before I was in high school. So I think
Mhm.
that's pretty understandable. Um, yeah, I mean, it's the kind of the obvious stuff, right? Technologic, Defunct,
Yeah.
um, One More Time, Harder, Better, Faster, Stronger, which I didn't even know was a Daft Punk song. I don't think I knew Daft Punk was when I heard Stronger and
Mm.
Kanye sampling that. So that was kind of like a cool thing. Oh, not only is that a really recognizable sample, but it's from a really famous DJ too. Interesting, you know?
Yeah.
Um, and in terms of deep cuts on Random Access Memories, Doing It Right really
Yeah.
stuck around for me.
Doing It Right is, I think, one of the best ones. I also I like Fragments of Time a lot off that one, and also Lose Yourself to Dance is probably my favorite music video off all those hits. But yeah, the Daft Punk, legendary. Check them out. I'm hoping we'll see them again sometime in the future. I will go to the festival and watch them wherever they get that.
I just hope they're doing something, even if it's not necessarily what they've been doing, because they're only in their late 40s. I hope they don't just disappear into anonymous retirement.
Yeah, and isn't there a
Not that they
Tron
haven't earned
3
it, but
coming
I just
out?
hope they selfishly do more.
And with Tron, there's a Tron 3, I think, that's supposed to be coming out in the future. So I'm
Yeah, I believe
surprised that
that's a
they're,
Disney Plus planned release. Yeah.
yeah, wonder if they're even going to be attached or not anymore. Interesting to see. But Dave, we should now go to I don't know. I don't even really know the best way to tee this up because it's like the least surprising news story ever. The Golden Globes are corrupt, and they use their status, these 90 people, to grease their own palms. Ooh, big surprise! But the LA Times had really two articles that came out over the weekend. One that was like an investigative piece, kind of looking at court I don't know, appeal or that's going currently ongoing after a case was brought and shot down beforehand, where this person wanted to be put into the Hollywood foreign press and felt like they were being basically like blackballed out of it,
Right.
and it has led to some of the issues with the Hollywood Foreign Press Association being highlighted, and then another article kind of exposing or talking about the people who are actually in the Hollywood foreign press. And um, generally, what were your takeaways from these articles? Anything that really like stood out to you? Anything that was notable?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it was illuminating just for shedding like finer detail on things people have kind of openly known and talked about. Because I looked back, we said the Golden Globes didn't matter like the past 3 years, and so as many people, this is not a new thought.
Mhm,
They've been openly mocked for their lack of credibility, the HFPA,
mhm,
and also uh, criticized for their shadowy nature as this cabal of foreign journalists, less than 100 of them. No one really knows who they are. They're not well-known media people. It's one thing if it was like A.O. Scott at the New York Times and David Ehrlich at IndieWire, famous
mhm.
movie critics, and Richard Brody from the New Yorker, one of the probably less legendary guy we have at this time who critiques movies. It's not that. It's no one close. You have no idea who any of these people are. And the LA Times report kind of hammered home that, yeah, a lot of these people like barely even work in foreign Hollywood media.
Mhm.
So it's like, what the fuck is going on here? But then I think it's important to remember that the Golden Globes is still a relatively popular event as far as things are concerned. It's like 20 million viewers every year. And, apart from live sports, that's really fucking high these days, People
Yeah,
care. And you can tell, we know this, we've known this forever, and you can see the evidence that the Golden Globes are seen as good marketing for movies that have awards prospect, because this is the
mhm,
second most viewed uh, awards night for movies and TV. This is watched more than the Emmys, even though we give the Emmys way more credibility for television.
mhm.
So I think just seeing this detail and seeing like some HFPA members being, named and explain what they do and don't do professionally was illuminating. I guess like there's no new takeaways. We already knew all this stuff, but like I think just seeing it out in the open is good. And there's talk that like this pressure could amount to something. Let's hope. But yeah, it's not too surprising, unfortunately.
Yeah, it, I think the fact that it's gaining traction is a bit surprising because similar to like, and this is going to be a weird comparison. I'm going to caveat this. Similar to like the Woody Allen documentary that came out, where people are like, "Oh my God, Woody Allen! Like, well,
Yeah,
he's totally canceled now." It's like, bro, we've known this. Like, we
yeah,
know he's not a good dude. We know that
not news.
we know that the Hollywood Foreign Press is a corrupt organization of like 90 people who have this huge status only because of the timing. And I think because they also know how to do an award show the way people want to see stars, where they're kind of a lot of times they're drunk, they're
Mhm.
a little bit more candid than they are at these other ceremonies.
Yeah,
It's a little bit
small
looser.
room. They're
Yeah,
very social. That's like the whole point.
right. So it I think people just enjoy watching because they see stars in a different setting than they do for the rest of the time. But it's just the problem I think I have with the Hollywood Foreign Press, at least this year, and kind of goes back to an issue they have in past years. It's just the choices that they make in
Yeah.
nominating and who wins. We highlighted this in our past review, but the Five Bloods, Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, not receiving any nominations, as well as Judas and the Black Messiah.
Mhm.
Just
And
it's a
on TV
huge
side, I May Destroy You.
right. Like
Completely shut out, which
uh,
is ludicrous.
yeah, these shows and films that are excellent but have black stars and creators at the
Mhm.
forefront not being awarded is the issue I have this year. I don't really
Right.
care because nothing else is new.
Right. And I think, confirming it from that LA Times report, there are no black members in
Yep.
the HFPA. There are other people of color, but there's no specifically black members. It's like, huh, yeah, maybe that has something to do with it. They have a really bad track record with honoring uh, black art. They also have a bad track record with women. This is the first year they've nominated, I think, more than two women at a time. Like the list of women they've even nominated for best director is like five names before this year. Last
Now
time,
3 of them are, I think,
yeah,
right?
right. It's
So
Fennell, Regina King,
and
and
Shao.
Chloe Zhao this year.
Yeah.
But and yeah, they said that they're working to improve now. But like again, like you mentioned, the reason this is all coming up is because of that core case, and like you have this ethics, all these ethical things where HFBA wants to remain exclusive and shadowy. They don't want actual qualified people that work in and around film to join and actually lend credibility and credence to this organization. They're not interested in that. They're just trying to hang out with celebrities and get glad handed and used for marketing. They're very happy to be used, right? Like one of the biggest criticisms this year was that Emily in Paris got multiple nominations on the TV front, a show that's noted for not being good. Also, weird that the foreign press would nominate something that's such like a really stereotypical white American goes abroad thing. Like there's
Mhm.
not a lot of good things to say about Emily in Paris critically, right? Yet we found out in this report that oh yeah, they wined and dined. Emily in Paris, the production, Netflix, and I think Paramount was involved with it. They wined and dined like 30 HFPA members and put them up at a 5-star hotel in Paris and visit the set and stuff. And not that media isn't invited to the set all the time. That's common. But like to like pointedly bring the HFPA to your set when they're not going to make any valuable media coverage to promote your work out of it, you're just going to reward them later with a Globe nomination. Like it's just so obvious.
Yeah. Yeah, I really wish just one of these, like, awards, like SAG or something like that, would just move their show before the Golden Globes. I feel like that would, like, change a lot of the storyline around them, because it
Mhm.
being the first one really just gives them so much, I don't know, momentum, I guess. People wanna see this, they're interested. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that it's really tough too because we had other awards, right? Like you have the Gotham Awards
Yeah.
happen, you have the critics groups and stuff, but like none of that is ever going to like be a television event, like, and I don't
Mhm.
think the Guild Awards can really approach that either. So I think you need Hollywood buy-in to stop caring about the Globes, and have a report even say that if Hollywood didn't care about the benefits that the Globes provide, then things would change. But it
Mhm.
seems like you know they'll keep rolling with it. So that's unfortunate. But in the meantime, we can just continue to remind people that the voting body is not representative of any of the other voting bodies. Right? SAG. We got SAG nominations. That's the first thing that's any kind of representation of what the Oscars have become. So it's always important to remember that the Globes really have no bearing on much of anything
Yep.
besides helping market movies.
The Golden Globes are the Grammys of movies. So, unfortunately, even
Right.
though the Grammys should be the Oscars. Anyways, why don't we switch to some music right now? We're going to talk about SHINee with their comeback album, Don't Call Me, the seventh album. Um, SHINee is an interesting K pop group. Um, Interesting because I think, they formed 2008, had a lot of success, and then the last couple of years have had some really challenging times. 2017, Jong Hyun, one of their members, died of an apparent suicide. The group decided to stay together and just kind of stay as the four of them now.
Mhm.
2018, they released another album, but then they kind of had to go on a bit of a hiatus because I believe one or two of the members had to fulfill their military obligation.
Yeah, 3 of the 4 finished
Three of
their
the four.
military service last year. Yeah.
So it's been an interesting up and down couple of years, but finally they're back with this new album. Don't Call Me. And Dave, what do you think? Is this album a good comeback album?
I did like the album, yes. And you see online today, there's a lot of hype and anticipation for Shiny's back. That's the thing on some of their other tracks when they make comebacks for Shiny's back, right? But Shiny being back now is a big deal because again, first time since Junghyun died, right? And like the 2018 album was the last time any of his vocals were on music. So this is the first time it's like new of just the 4 members that remain. And that's a pretty long wait for active K-pop act. You cite the military service. You know, K-pop members having their military service and doing like a second contract with their labels. that's no sure thing in the history of K-pop music, right? And
Mhm.
um, I think it would have been pretty easy to see like SHINee dying off because Taemin, who did not do his military service yet, is like incredibly active still. He just had a solo album come out last year, and he was part of Super M, which is the SM Entertainment K-pop supergroup, of which he's one of the members. So I wouldn't have been surprised to see like the SHINee group fade away and Taemin just do Super M stuff and solo stuff, right? Because you said it came out in 2008, 13 years. There's very little track record for a K-pop group sticking around in
Mhm.
full for that long a time. Like again, like they're a second generation K-pop act debuted in the 2000s,
Yeah.
right? Like there's very few left that are even like peers for them, right? Like everything else that we talk about now, like acts that are marketed to the West, BTS, Blackpink, like uh, even
Last 5 years.
EXO, NCT, those are clearly 2010s acts. So SHINee is a bit
Yes.
of a relic in that regard. Um, and I like listening to this album because uh, from what I gathered, I'm relatively new to the group. I really became aware of them from Taemin being in Super M the past 2 years. Hearing I think like the trademark uh SHINee sound, which is a lot more R&B focused than a lot of the other K-pop I've been listening to lately, was pretty cool. But I was surprised with just about how much range there was on this 30-minute album. So I liked it quite a bit.
Yeah, I agree. For being a short album, and shout out to short albums. Um, I really thought it was like banger after banger, especially for the first half. Probably, I think near the last couple of tracks, I started to kind of lose a little bit of interest. And I find that with myself with K-pop albums a lot, only because I think the like K-pop nature, where it's like this like pop EDM sound, sometimes
Mhm.
just ends up falling in the sameness category to me. But I really thought like the first track, "Don't Call Me,"
Yeah.
"Marry You," "Code," "Kiss Kiss," like I was like, all right, like we got some variation on here, but it's all really hitting right now. Which tracks were standing out to you?
Yeah, I definitely like "Don't Call Me," the title track. The
Yeah.
music video came out today for that. From what I gathered, that's new for them because hip hop has not been like much to their music to this point. That's clearly a hip hop influenced K-pop track.
Mhm.
And I think it's really good. The video is pretty cool too. Taemin is quite a good dancer. If you check those videos out, you'd see that. I also thought Body Rhythm was really catchy, and just like little production choices. Like I think the bass line and attention is really good. The vocoder, like vocal effects on Kind at the very end, like really cool. And I really want you. Like I think the chorus is really catchy there. You said "Marry Me," definitely more classic for them, R&B focused thing, but the harmonizing is like really impressive on that one.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of tracks worth revisiting.
Yeah, "Marry You" kind of reminded me of "Talk" by Khalid a little bit with like
Hmm,
the way the beat was
sure.
structured. Um, I liked "Code" a lot. That just seems like a very like K-pop style banger, but like just right around the chorus, like the way that everything just kind of like blaring, I thought was really cool. Um, yeah, and then "Kiss Kiss" is a little bit more toned back, but I just for those types of like lo-fi, or I don't even know if it's lo-fi, but like R&B popish sounds that you find on some of these K-pop albums. I really thought this one stood out, was really sweet. So yeah, a really impressive comeback, I think. And hopefully they're a group that sticks around, the elder statesmen of K-pop, it seems.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I said it before, but they really haven't targeted the West throughout their career. I mean, they've made both Korean and Japanese albums and have found success in both countries. But I'm just going to be checking to see if there's a change in their strategy over at SM. If they want SHINee to be big in the US, are they even going to bother? Like, I feel like the inception of K-pop groups, like if a group is just founded, they'll kind of like announce the label, like we are targeting the West with these guys, these girls, right? So I like SHINee because they're OGs as far as the genre is concerned. Like like what do they want to do? Who knows, right? Because Super M definitely targeted for the West, right? Um, And like I just looking at how SM Entertainment operates, we haven't really talked about them before. YG is Blackpink, Big Hit, who's relatively nascent, is obviously BTS. But SM, they're like the universal music group when it comes to K-pop. They have like everybody else:
Hmm.
EXO, NCT, Wavy, Red Velvet, Girls' Generation, loaded
Hmm.
label. And the fact that they could pull off something like Super M is really cool. Like, what other music label would ever try and like make a brand new pop group because they have so many other pop acts to take talent from, right? Like, it's a
Hmm.
really cool idea. Um, so yeah, I want to see what's next for SHINee and SM in the West.
Well, definitely check out "Don't Call Me," the seventh album from SHINee. But Dave, why don't we move on to someone that's being called the next greatest thing out of Staten Island since Wu Tang Clan, the heir to the New York drill scene, taking that over from Pop Smoke, R.I.P. Potentially one of the biggest up and coming artists that New York has seen in quite some time. CJ dropping his EP, "Loyalty Over Royalty." Now, I know that I'm just reading the picture on your screen right now, and I'm just kind of finding it ridiculous with that face. No, the album or the EP is "Loyalty Over Royalty," but I'm just like, whew, Dave, CJ, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, you have to start with Whoopty, which is his big hit song. Came out summer 2020, got re-released once he signed to Warner. Peaked at number 10 in the Hot 100 last month or so, making it the biggest Brooklyn drill song ever when
Mhm.
it comes to chart placement and just national spread and growth and whatnot. And it had a bit of a TikTok rise, but like I looked like I don't think it was like a huge TikTok hit. I think it just kind of got like really pushed because CJ comes across as incredibly manufactured. You look, his uncle is James Cruz, a veteran label executive. You can kind of see the strings, and the fact that he got signed off of one real big hit. That's not new, but like you can just kind of see that like CJ was clearly like pushed down the drill path because he had other music here and there, including a song from 2018 with Takashi 69, where he's not making drill music because drill music was not
Wasn't popular then,
wasn't popular outside of Brooklyn at the time.
right?
You know, so you listen to Whoopty, and like, yeah, it's a tight Brooklyn drill song. It's sampling a Bollywood sample that's been used
Mhm.
before by people like King Von, but either way, it's a good sample. And like, it's just a one verse track is really tight and it's catchy. I get it, and it does go hard, but like the lack of authenticity is just so evident. And then when you listen to the rest of the Loyalty Over Royalty EP, I think that thought will carry over because it's not like he just does all drill stuff. And again, this is like
Mhm.
backward facing drill stuff, which also makes it annoying. Like we talked about Chef G last year and how he was kind of
Mhm.
moving forward. The biggest loss of Pop Smoke musically was because he clearly had so much more to give and grow in music as a whole, right? 5 Foreign, really nascent, but like that big drip is authentic as fuck, right?
Mhm.
CJ is just making like 2019 drill music. Why? Like, and why is it working for him? I don't know. I don't understand. But like again,
Yeah.
less than the rest of the EP, there's also some melodic stuff here. He also is copying Little TJ and A Boogie, other New York rap stars.
Mhm.
So I don't know what his identity is supposed to be. He's just throwing shit at the wall. I was surprised to see that much variety on this, to be honest.
Yeah, I think that's the thing that stood out to me listening to this is it seems like there's a lot of different kinds of sounds throughout. You know, even you go from the first two tracks, politics to set. Set is a lot more vibey, I think, and kind of uses some of the like auto tune sound that Kanye used back in like late 2000s, and
Sure.
that
Yeah.
doesn't even sound like it's super recent, but it's like he's just kind of like trying some stuff here. And I think that that's kind of the story as you're highlighting here is I think some people are saying CJ is just like a scene chaser and just trying to like
Hmm.
catch the moment. I don't really knock him for that. He's trying to break into music and become popular, and you, this is the game right now. You need to get a hit on the radio. He's got some family that helps him out. He's not going to be the first singer or musician ever
Yep.
whose family is helping them become famous because they're rich or they have clout. And if he gets famous off one of these things, good for him. I didn't think it was particularly good music, but I was like, yeah, you know what,
Yeah.
good for him.
When I first heard Whoop Dee before was, I think, a national hit. Like it became pretty big in New York, and again, whether that was organic or not, it did become big in New York. Um, I was just struck as a 22G's fan just how blatant that sounded like 22G's flow.
Mm,
Like, dude, and I just get annoyed because 22G's is good, is more or less the founder of Brooklyn drill music, but has not become popular outside of New York. And I don't think that's fair or right that you can just kind of jack his whole thing and get it to work. Again, not a new phenomenon, this kind of thing happening, but it's like, you know, 22G's actually gave a quote the other day that CJ gives off some 6ix9ine energy, and I'm like, you're not wrong. I guess he definitely seems to be a better person, at least right now. He has a lot less quotes out there, anyway.
mhm.
Um, but I guess the thing to look for now is what else does he have another hit off this EP? If not, I assume he'll put out some shit pretty quickly to keep going, because otherwise, I think he'd fade away pretty fast. And yeah, I mean, if you're looking for, I think, where drill is going, and as opposed to where drill has been in the case of CJ, I think look out for Busy Banks. He'll be the next one we'll be talking about when he drops next. But yeah, this to me it was a little disheartening listening
Mm.
to Whoop D, because again I was like, the 22G's comp is just so obvious, but like 22G's like he's the founder, CJ's the chaser. It's just frustrating.
Yeah, I think the message as always is that Staten Island is trash, man. Just like straight up trash, like legitimately trash. But yeah, why don't we move on from CJ into a very similar topic, Supernova, the Harry McQueen movie, which is maybe actually the most different thing we could be talking about because this follows the two very affluent white men who are married for about 20 years, or I guess partners 20 years, maybe not officially married. And they are dealing with one of them, uh, Tusker, played by Stanley Tucci, um, developing Alzheimer's and kind of exploring what that end of his life, end of their relationship is going to look like. The other partner is played by Colin Firth,
Hmm.
whose character's name is Sam. And this is a short movie. It's like about 90 minutes, but I thought it was a really affecting 90 minutes that Harry McQueen um, helms here in his second film. And, um, even if I think there were a couple of things I wish had been fleshed out a little bit more, I found this to be. Um, I found this to be a more delightful look at someone in this sort of situation than Viggo Mortensen's movie, which we reviewed recently, covering a similar type of
Mm,
scenario. So, and we'll be talking about a similar scenario when we see the father in a couple of
yeah,
weeks. So, Dave, Supernova, did you like it?
yeah. It's a good point to compare it to Falling from Vigo, because that's like all like the obvious, like in your face negativity of
Mm,
what happens when someone you love is experiencing dementia. But that movie also had a lot of like flashback scenes and trying to flesh out things, I think, too much, and like holding the audience's hand and not focusing on, I think, the more interesting aspects of its story. Supernova is really straightforward. There is very little plot. It's
hmm
really just dialogue for
Yep.
the most part, and some like, expressive landscape shots and looking at the stars and, supernovas, right? But like,
Right.
uh, and the key to the movie's success is that Firth and Tucci are really good. And like
Yeah.
they have a long standing like real life friendship for like about 2 decades, I think, at this point, from what I was reading. And like you can tell that like this is like a really warm relationship. You believe these characters
hmm
have just been together a long time. It makes sense. So seeing these conversations be the only thing holding the movie up, because they're really the only thing in the movie, uh, it all seems to come together pretty well. Um, I think for me, I think I would have liked it more if I like. Did you think there was like an inciting incident for this conflict? It kind of just felt like a kind of a gradual build because there is a little bit of vagueness about Tucci's condition, both of their plans for each other. Like it's kind of like things are hinted at throughout the plot, but like it's just kind of like steadily like moving as they talk to each other.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think it's a gradual build. I think I would have liked, and this is gonna sound weird as well, but I would have liked if they had explored Tucci's decision to take his own life a little bit more. Like I feel like that kind of gets discovered in like the last third, like the last act, and then it's kind of uh, discussed briefly and decided upon quickly about whether he's going to go through with it or not. And I think that's actually a really interesting issue and one that has been a um, an issue of debate globally, and certainly the United States has been something. Whether people in these sorts of conditions should have the opportunity to end their life on their terms, and um, especially like you said, when this relationship is so obviously so well uh, shown in the movie and acted out by these two, I feel like there was just so much more meat on the bone. Like
Yeah,
especially if this had been something that they had been talking about prior to going to Sam's sister's house or something along those lines, it really would have given them an opportunity to like have that back and forth. Whereas Tucci was just kind of like, "No, I'm doing this," and then it was about Firth kind of coming to terms with that. And um, I just felt like it could have been a little bit more. But so you felt like there wasn't like something that really brought the conflict to the
yeah.
fore.
Well, I think that's the thing is like the relationship comes across as like really authentic and like everything makes sense to me. But because there's really no exposition in this movie at all, I
Right.
think because you're just kind of thrown into just a moment in this
Mm,
relationship, you just kind of have to go with it, and that just naturally lends itself to some vagueness. That's all.
right. Yeah. No, I agree with that. Um, I also really wish that we had gotten to see a little bit of the aftermath, and I know that they kind of leave it a little bit more um, open ended, which I
Right.
appreciate those endings, but I'm always fascinated by how these sorts of things would impact, like a decision like that would impact tertiary characters in this story, so to speak. But um, yeah, it was really thoughtful, and I kind of liked the use of the stars. I think as a way of kind of like framing the way he was like talking about what's beyond and kind of thinking about his own life. And I also kind of liked how they use um, this creative juice that they each had or have lost in some sense as a way of kind of demonstrating where they each were at in terms of this relationship with this illness and how it was impacting them both. And obviously you see at the end Firth is able to play in front of others when he wasn't really sure he'd be able to do that again to the same level. And I thought some of the metaphor and symbolism really came across well in this. Any moments or scenes or anything that stood out to you that you want to touch on before we wrap up?
Hmm. Man, I really like the, the shots of the lake country in England's really
Mm,
nice. I guess the moment early on where Tucci's character is like, yeah, I know I didn't pack the pills. I didn't forget them. I just didn't pack them. Here's why. Like that kind of like plants the seeds for what's to come. Thought that was well done because again, like
yeah.
I feel like all the moments, all like the key scenes where they're really talking back and forth, it all feels like real conversations people would have. It's not again like I think just juxtaposing this with falling, where there's like so much like direct action being communicated via
Hmm.
conversations for the sake of the audience. Like it's quite a stark comparison.
Yeah. I think the scene that stood out to me is probably the showiest one is the dinner scene where Tucci gets up to give the speech and can't really like read or like make it out, and Firth kind of has to read his own words, and just the way it really impacts him and he kind of crumbles in that scene is so well done. I really thought they were both great, but I really thought Firth was putting on a acting clinic in this one. So
Mhm.
um, yeah, a delightful little film. It's VOD right now. worth checking out, I'd say. Any last thoughts?
This is one in the, I feel like, a basket of a bunch of movies right now where it's like, because of COVID, I think these movies just get put out in like late January and February this year because they're still technically eligible for the Oscars. But I think of this, I think of the Mauritanian coming up and the World to Come coming up and Falling, recently. Like a lot of these movies, like you feel like they might have actually had some like awards juice if they just came out a little earlier. But like, not possible at this point. It's too late.
Yeah, we're going to be getting to one of the movies that does have some awards juice in a second. But before we do, let's jump to a Netflix movie that did this receive a Golden Globe? No, I don't think
Rosamund Pike nominated for Best Actor in Musical or Comedy at the
that's
upcoming Golden Globes for I Care a Lot.
yeah, and that's an interesting thing. I guess this would be labeled as a dark comedy.
Yeah, definitely.
Um, uh, Rosamund Pike plays uh, Marla Grayson, who is this um, I don't know, a guardianship person, whose whole job is to watch over the elderly when they can't take care of themselves. But the twist is, she's basically running a grift where her and this doctor and this I don't know, what is it, investigator? What's her lover's role? I guess in all of this.
Unclear. Isaac
Yeah,
Gonzalez character. I wanted more from her. We'll save that.
we'll talk about that in a second. But they basically take these older people who are in very vulnerable situations, but maybe not ready to need guardianship in their life, and they um, kind of take everything from them by gaming the judicial system. And um, you know, she gets caught into this ring. She picks the wrong old lady, and the Russian mob gets involved. It's a bit, it's a bit convoluted, I think, in some way, but um, definitely a interesting movie. I think there's a lot to say on it. I guess I want to start with Dave. Did you enjoy I Care a Lot?
So I think it's really well made and like has like a nice slick pace to it, and there's like really funny moments. But and I think the very ending does a really good job of bringing the movie back around.
Mhm.
And I really needed that for me. But there's like a fatal flaw to me with the way the movie started trending, especially towards like Act Three. I think the premise and like the build up is like really great, and like this is Pike, getting back to where she really broke out, obviously as Amy in Gone Girl.
Yeah.
Damn, almost 7 years ago at this point, right? It's like kind of that like sociopathic, strong female character, right?
Hmm.
I think the problem with I Care a Lot is that because it does a really good job early on of highlighting that she is a grifter, she is a scumbag, she's taking advantage of people, old people usually, um, normal old people, and just abusing them and making money off them, right? That's made clear. But then the movie starts trying to like make you feel sympathetic to her and care
Yeah.
about her character versus just letting her be a bad person. I have no problem watching bad people be bad. We do this all the time. Some of the best movies are about bad people. But like, why did you have to try and make her likable? Because she wasn't.
Hmm.
And thankfully, that final ending, bringing it all back to that first guy she gets in the argument with or whatever. Thank God that happened because like, okay, the movie did know that she was bad still by the end. But man, like, I did not like how that tone shifted. It's like, oh well, she's taking advantage of the mafia now, so we should side with her. It's like, no, I still don't like her. Like, why can't I just watch bad people versus bad people? Like that rubbed me the wrong way a little bit.
Yeah. uh, Whenever they tried to sympathize with her, and I'm trying to think of like a good example of how they tried to create the sympathy for her in the film. Is there a scene
Well,
that you can recall?
well, honestly, I thought like the kind of like the girl boss, like I'm a woman,
Yes.
fuck the men shit was awfully tacked on. Like it only came up in a few conversations. It's like, oh, I'm supposed to like her because of that. It's like coming off of promising young woman. I don't like this tact, and it's like it's not. It has nothing to do with it being a women thing. I think, but let's think back to something like Wolf of Wall Street, scumbags, Jordan Belfort and the crew, taking advantage of people, but the movie never tries to hide that from you or change your mind. It just portrays in a funny way, so you enjoy the ride watching them be shitty, and then they get what's coming to them, right? But
Yeah.
I think because we had to make Grayson like sticking it to the man thing, I feel like that if we had removed that element, even I think it's just a lot tighter.
Yeah, I was gonna say every time they would kind of try to create some sympathies for her, I would always remember what you can see when Dave speaks and YouTube shows him, which is this board of these faces of these people that she's grifting basically, and that she has ruined their lives to make money for herself, and um, most of those people are innocent. You know, they probably did bad things in their life, but they weren't people that deserve to have their entire livelihoods taken away. And I think by far the most sympathetic character for me is the older woman, um, played by, was it Diane Weist? Was that
Yep.
who it was? Yeah,
With the
Diane Weist.
mohawk,
So
we just
Jennifer
saw her.
Peterson, yes, and watching her be given the order from the judge, the emergency order for guardianship, and seeing just like her whole life taken from her in front of her eyes, um, was just so, it was destroying in a lot of ways. And thinking about other older people who might have been in similar situations who were put through that was just really heavy. And it's the kind of thing where you almost hope this is just something that they came up with for this movie and that there's not actually grifts like this that go on. But I would not be shocked if things like this happen throughout the country. Um, and it really, I think, just made me despise Marla a lot. And I think I found myself, one of the issues I had was I didn't feel like I really had anybody I was rooting for in the
Yeah.
movie. And that kind of left me feeling like I don't really care what happens to anybody at this point. I kind of want them all to die in a sense,
I mean, I think like
unfortunately.
it was kind of clear like halfway through. It's like, all right, well, there's really no other way for this movie to pan out because
Right.
we're not going to start rooting for like Peter Dinklage's character just showing up. Like the way the conflict was set up, there was no, and that's why I was like having such a tough time watching the movie end because I was like, oh, like I understand structurally why it went this way, but like the tone was just really killing me. And like I
Hmm.
was like thankful like when that twist happens, I'm like, okay, like again, like the movie at least understood. It's like, no, no, got what's coming to you. She is bad. I was like, okay, okay.
Yeah.
I just
Yeah.
the movie is well made and like it's still pretty tight. Like I feel like there were some tweaks. This could have been really great.
Yeah. Uh, I still think there's a lot to like about the movie. I'm is that because I realize I'm being too negative, and like my next thought is no one dies in this movie. Like they all like are go through these things that should kill a normal human being. Like when Marla is drives her car, or doesn't drive, but is forced to drive her car into a lake and goes like probably like 200 feet down and somehow is able to kick her way out of it. I'm like, oh, so she's just also Superwoman now. Um,
Yeah, she definitely
oh,
should have drowned.
yeah, or Eliza Gonzalez's character Fran somehow survives like being beaten and just being in
Right.
a house where the gas is running for like hours. That didn't make any sense to me.
Yeah. I when after Grayson survived, I'm like, okay, Fran will be dead then. He's like, oh
Right.
no, she's not dead either. Shit. And so like I actually didn't recognize Isaac Gonzalez at first. The hair's a little different. Like, and she spoke about like trying to get beyond like just doing like femme fatale roles and stuff. So good on her. This is definitely a little different speed than what we're used to seeing from her. Um, but I thought the role was still kind of a little thankless because they didn't actually give her as much to do. I thought they were setting up her leaving Marla because
Mhm.
Marla was like addicted to the grift. She wouldn't get out, you
Yep.
know, when danger was close. I thought that would drive them apart, and it didn't. It actually brought them together. And I was like, huh.
Hmm. Yeah, their relationship was a bit frustrating to me only because I again I wanted one of them to be a good person. This is just a movie of a lot of bad people, which I think it might explain some of the scenes I found the most enjoyable, which was a lot of the action scenes, like that first one where they try to shoot Jennifer Peterson out of the nursing home, and
Yeah.
like the oxygen tank goes flying and takes out one of the guys.
Yep.
I thought that was really fun. I really liked for as much as I bagged on the car scene a second ago, I thought that was still like a well shot, and like I was like,
Mhm.
okay, like this all makes sense. Like the showdown where they're holding her in the construction area, whatever it is. Um, so I think those like scenes where she goes undercover, even when she like goes and kidnaps Peter Dinklage from his like almost like a heist scene, so to speak. I thought those were really well done. Thought the courtroom scenes were a lot of fun and just like cool to see how Marla was going to get herself out of it. Um, so there's a lot to like here. I think just maybe some tweaking of the characters could have really leveled this movie up. Anything that really stuck to you that you liked?
Oh yeah, and I think Pike's good. Again, it's reminiscent of Gone Girl, but she's good at this
Mhm.
kind of stuff. Um, kind of cool to see her come back around because she'd definitely been doing different stuff. I'd point people to A Private War, where she plays the journalist Mary Colvin, who died in Syria. I think that's definitely much different than this kind of thing, but she is kind of good at this, and I think this is definitely her lane of playing like the not just an independent woman, but someone who can scheme and stuff like that. It definitely fits. Um, and
Yeah,
yeah, no, I agree about like the assisted living like heist attempts and stuff like that. Like again, the movie's pretty tight. I think it's fun. And I think the less you think about it, probably the better it is. Honestly.
yeah. Also, shout out to Diane Weist because that scene where she's like really hopped up on the over medication that they gave her, and
Mhm.
she's like, it's just like you made the worst mistake of your life or whatever it is. Just really creepy and just a really well acted scene. So I appreciate her in all these roles. Check it out. It's on Netflix. I care a lot. And also check out Nomadland because as the Golden Globes will be coming up soon, we'll probably be seeing this potentially winning an award there, at least being mentioned for nominations. And this is a front runner for the Academy Awards. Chloe Zhao's newest film. I think this is her third film, if I'm correct, and Eternals will
Yep.
be her fourth. Um, and interesting fact about Chloe Zhao: all of her movies are over 90% on Rotten Tomatoes. Pretty interesting to see. Take that for what's worth. Rotten Tomatoes just aggregates the positive or negative reviews.
Hmm.
Um, but Nomadland follows Frances McDormand as uh, her character. Um, Fern, travels from place to place, modern day nomad, kind of just trying to deal with her life, which is riddled with grief and loss and uncertainty in some ways, uncertainty in others. And uh, I want to caveat my review by saying these sorts of films are not usually my favorite types of films. So I might this might have jived a little bit less with me than it seems to have with a lot of people. But I thought No Man Land was pretty good. I think it's also hurt a little bit by the fact that this has been hyped up for a lot of months as like this, uh, you know, movie that's going to blow everybody away, so to speak. And I think this is a really beautiful look at a unique lifestyle that's different from many people in the country, and I think it's illuminating in a lot of different ways. But I'm not sure if this was like the movie to end all movies, so to speak. This wasn't. I guess maybe my expectations were too high going, is what I'm saying. But Dave, did you feel the same way after watching Nomadland?
Yeah, I think it's definitely a little unconventional as far as like a best picture uh, contender goes because there's not like a ton of like action, even conflict for that matter. You'd be surprised how little conflict there is for someone who's living in a van and moving from state to state, seasonal job to seasonal job. And like the threat of like danger for Fern is always on the periphery, but never actually presents itself. So it's kind of like in the back of the mind, right? And it's really obviously it's a Frances McDormand vehicle. She was the one who optioned the book that this is based off of,
Mhm.
and then approached Zhao about directing. So she wanted to make this movie. It's a movie about her fictional character, um, and I really appreciated that. This is definitely like of a piece with Zhao's other movies where she works with other non actors in her non-documentary movies or non-fiction films, or sorry, fictional films, and like Swanky and Linda May and what's it, Bob, Bill Wells, whatever it was. Those are all real people playing fictional versions of themselves. People cited in the book it's based off of, right? Real nomads, and seeing them interact with Fern definitely felt real and authentic. And I think that, again, the
Yeah.
movie portrays a specific kind of poverty with like so much grace and dignity, and it's laughable to compare it to something that is attempting to do that, like Kill Bill Elegy. Like this
Mm.
is at such a higher level. I think that really speaks to Chloe Zhao's directorial style, which we can get into. But yeah, there's been a lot of hype about this movie. Wins the Golden Lion at Venice last year. Wins the People's Choice Award at TIFF last year. Hyped up as a contender. It's the Searchlight, Oscar movie this year.
Hmm.
And I think because it's really somber and like Chloe Zhao movies, it might not like grab everyone. So I definitely understand that. But
Yeah.
I still liked it. But I just watched The Rider finally from Chloe Zhao right before this, so I kind of knew more what to expect.
Yeah. This is a movie that really is just trying to help you feel like you're living the experience of these people, and like you said, there's maybe not a lot of conflict. I think probably the biggest moments of conflict come when something threatens this potential lifestyle not being what Fern is going to do anymore, whether it's her van breaking down and not being able to afford repairs, whether it's um, uh, I'm sorry, David Stratham's David,
Hmm.
trying to convince her to settle down and not live this lifestyle anymore with him, and um, seeing the anxiety that comes up for her, and also I think the grief that she's kind of sitting with and carrying with her everywhere. Um, but then it also I think really highlights some of the aspects of this lifestyle that are so unique. It really I think highlights the connection to the land and to nature that these people believe in, and what makes this life so appealing to them.
Hmm.
I think it really highlights this community that feels so maybe like strange to think about, these people kind of just like meeting up in these parking lots or these like spaces where you can just kind of like park your vans or your
Hmm.
vehicles and like hang out. But there really is a kinship from this lifestyle that I think you really get to kind of grow and understand as they highlight that most of these people have gone through some big loss, something that makes them feel like their life was too hunkered down by, kind of subscribing to this capitalistic machine in a way.
Hmm.
Um, and I think there's also some moments of levity that really build out the picture. Whether it's them talking about how you take care of your shit because you have to do that when you live this lifestyle. It's really interesting movie, and one that I think you can take a lot away from. But I guess when I think about movies, and I'm like, why didn't this movie maybe hit more for me? I think it's not necessarily what I would always look for in a film that I was turning on to watch for a weekend. But um, yeah, well, talk a little bit more about Chloe Zhao's style. Like, what did you like about her? What stood out to you?
Well, I think she's subtle.
Hmm.
She kind of lets the script do the work, and usually the scripts are more understated. She notably directed, wrote, and edited Nomadland. But even looking back to The Rider, which I had or seen the trailer in the theaters, and I just kind of missed it because it didn't play in the theaters that long. I just finally watched it leading up to Nomadland, and it's a similar thing where like her lead performer is playing a fictional version of himself based on his own life experiences. Yet it's still a fictional movie. Like the fact that she can kind of pull off that stuff is is really impressive to me because she's able to like communicate. So I feel like whatever she's going for so authentically. And in this case, like the writer as well, we're spending a lot of time out west at the Badlands pop up. In
Hmm.
Nomadland, we really do travel around, as the name might suggest. But um, you get these amazing vista shots and stuff too. It's really great. Um, but I think for Nomadland, like I mentioned before, like the dignity, like the grace of it all, and like it's subtle, right? Like you mentioned there's an inciting incident for a lot of people that leads them to adapting this new way of life. And like the 2008 like financial crash is kind of referenced
Hmm.
here as a cause, and it's definitely the case for Fern, right? Where like Empire Nevada becomes a non-designated place and is effectively a real life ghost town because it was a
Insane.
company town and the company is gone, therefore no one is left. Right? It
Hmm.
makes sense. Kind of seeing that shown, I think again really effective. And like again, economically, like showing the plight of people. I feel like again this is a really good job as opposed to like how Hillbilly Elegy was like on the surface trying to tell us about Appalachia. Like
Yeah.
again, it's such a stark comparison.
Yeah. It really is. And even thinking about like the conversations that she has one on one, whether it's with Swanky, I believe it was Swanky, the one with the birds, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and then she gets the video from her, and
Yeah.
you just kind of sit with this video of these birds flying around, and it's a really moving moment. And seeing that kind of come back around, and also realizing that Swanky is gone, and like what that loss means to Fern in that community. Or was it Derek or Bob? I can't remember which one. She has the conversation at the end, whose son passed away from a suicide. Um, but it's near
Oh,
the end of
Bob.
the
Yeah.
film, yeah, and she's kind of then talking about her loss as well with her husband Bo, and how she feels like she has never really truly let go of him, and a lot of what she does now is to honor him, and it's just really like it builds out these people who I think, like you said, are these people who are seen by a lot of people as like just poor people, who are not really like trying to like improve their lives a lot of times, and it gives them back the power, I think, from that stereotype that these are people who are making this choice because it's right for them. It's just what's right for their lifestyle. And
Yeah.
that's a really that takes a really special touch. I think something Zhao did really well in this film.
Right. Yeah. You think like early on, it's like, oh, my mom said you're homeless, and he's like, no, I'm just houseless, but I'm good.
Yeah.
Fast forward to the end of the movie, it's like, are Fern's general motivations clear in this? Not really. This is really just kind of about the vibes. But at
Yeah.
the end, you understand why she just can't accept settling into relatively normal life. It's just not for her at this point.
Mhm.
So she sneaks out and leaves before because that's all she really can do at this point. How did you feel about David Straharen's character? He's the only other professional actor in the film, only other recognizable person.
Mhm.
um, like he's been in a lot of stuff. He's been nominated for a lot of stuff. I always think of him as Noah Vosen from Born Ultimatum, personally, but I feel like I hadn't seen him in
Yeah.
a while.
It's funny. I think of him as Sam. I get him and Sam Waterston kind of mixed up. They're very
Sure.
similar in my book. Um, how did I feel about him? I thought he was interesting. He was he's a bit aloof. I was very angry with him when he drops her plates.
Yeah.
Well, that was a devastating moment in the film. Um, you know, I, I I think the movie did something really interesting, which it took my natural inclination watching a movie, wanting like the male and the female, or the male and the protagonist and whatever their love interest to get together,
Yeah.
and it kind of like toyed with it, but then kind of like by her not getting with him, actually highlighted the right decision in a lot of it, and the right decision for Fern at least. And I thought that was really interesting. I don't know. I guess I didn't really think about his character too much as more than just like a vehicle to force Fern to like consider this life, going back to this lifestyle that she's ran away from. But what were
Yeah.
your thoughts around him as a
Well,
part of
when
the
he
movie?
came up, I was like, oh, this is probably a significant character because he's the only famous actor
Hmm.
that I've seen to this point. I should pay attention. And I saw it citing in a review that he actually kind of breaks the immersion a little bit
Hmm.
because he's not on Francis McDormand's level, but also McDormand's such a central figure to like see another famous person on the periphery. It's almost a little distracting, and it wasn't distracting for me, but he definitely like stood out for that real life meta reason to me.
Yeah, and I think that also just speaks to um and you said this a second ago, like the level of acting. Like McDormand is just on such a different level than someone like him, and she really like melts into these characters and becomes so believable. I mean, like even like just like the close-ups of her, but also like the actual people who are living this lifestyle. It's like she really looked convincing, and plays the part so well. I just don't think he got down to her same level, but I also kind of just recognized he was more of a tool than an actual like part of the movie. Um, yeah, I mean, what are you thinking this is gonna? What do you think the chances are for this at the award shows?
Be nominated for Best Picture, Best Actress,
Probably
for
best
sure,
director.
and Best Director. I think Zhao is probably the closest win for that for sure. She's
Hmm.
kind of been the favorite to this point. We'll see what happens, at the DGA and heck, even the Globes. But um, to this point, yeah, it's definitely a top contender. It's been billed as such. I think seeing look, it has a lot of the credibility of like a top contender. We'll talk about that when we talk about our predictions for the nominations and all that. But yeah, it'll be there. It'll be there for sure. So this definitely won't be fading away.
Yeah, I'm wondering if this is gonna be the like the Oscars taking the opportunity to anoint Zhao as like the next great director. I mean, I mentioned at the beginning of this we're gonna see her in Eternals next year, so she's gonna be getting that Marvel
Technically,
money.
end of this year still.
Oh, geez,
It's
wow,
slated for November.
that's kind of crazy to me. Everything just feels like next year. Although movie theaters in New York City at 25% starting March 15th, so some signs of life. But yeah, so we're gonna see Zhao end of this year with Eternals. It just feels like this is something the Oscars would do, like anointing the next great one, so to speak. But
Yeah.
we'll see. I mean, it's definitely a movie worth watching. It's a movie that I think will at least make you think and feel things, even if you don't love it. And most people have really liked it, so check it out on Hulu. That's it for us this week. Dave, what do we got for next week?
Well, we'll be talking about I think the other big Oscars contender left to be released to the public. That'd be Minari, which is another movie that a lot of people really like. That'll be available on VOD for May 24. And last, excited to talk about that once again. I got lucky and saw that early. Uh, we also have the Golden Globes happening. We'll see what the fuck happens there. Is Jared Leto going to win for the little things? I don't know. And was
How's the trunk space? Yes, nominated.
Julian Baker's third album is coming out. Some advanced reviews are quite positive. So excited to talk about that one.
Hell yeah.
And also on Hulu, we have the United States versus Billie Holiday, where Andra Day has been pegged as maybe a Best Actress late entrant to TBD.
But we'll check it out and we'll be talking about it. So hit that subscribe on youtube.com/nostalgiapod. Follow our Nostalgia Best of 2021 music playlist. The link is in the show notes. And soundcloud.com/nostalgiapod to listen to it any other way you want to. Catch you next week.